Hello everyone, this is CJ Novo 992 and today we are back for another brand new video, and don't worry about adjusting the headsets. Yes, I do look like death, and yes, I sound like it also. But the new Rangers top is here, so I'm delighted and we are pushing through to talk about Rangers things, because I'm sure there's so many out there like me that just continues to daydream about next season. And during those daydreams, I've been kind of just sitting back and thinking about this individual or this individual, what potential impact they could have for our team, or whether or not they were even going to be here next season. So instead of me just sitting there doing that, talking to myself, now that I've just said that out loud, I realise that's currently what I'm doing right now. Anyway, I thought it would be best for me to put it out there so me and thee can have a conversation down there in the comment section below about what the future holds for these Rangers loanees from last season. Now, just to clarify or anything like that, I'm not going to be talking about every single player that went out on loan, because it's quite obvious for some cases like Hasty and Brandon Barker what the future holds for these laddies. So instead of focusing on that, I'll just be talking about the 5 players I think are either had a phenomenal loan or has something about them that leaves their future right now in the old balance. And speaking of balance, if you don't mind helping the old channel out as we try to reach 50k, that'd be greatly appreciated. We are closing in, ladies and gentlemen. We are on the final stretch, so again, let's go get it. But to the actual video then, and the reason you're all here, the first player that I want to talk about, and the first player that went out on loan last season that has a very interesting summer now, is going to be the player that I went ahead and picked as my Rangers loan player of the year, because he was absolutely fantastic from the first whistle to the last. Every single game he grew, he matured, he learned to dictate a game more, he added stuff to his game. He really took what a loan is all about and he really went for it and done exactly what you want for a player going out on loan, and that is none other than, of course, Stephen Kelly, who spent last season out to Ross County. And obviously I've spoken about this laddie over the last couple of years now on the channel, because he had that fantastic loan spell at Ayr the year before where you could see he was so talented on the ball. He could ping a pass 30 yards, he could get on the ball, he was gorgeous at that type of stuff, but he needed to toughen up, he needed to get a wee bit harder worker, he needed to get a wee bit more grit in between his teeth, and he went to Ross County, and that's exactly what he picked up, as he's now a much more well-rounded midfielder, and he's a bit of a pit bull in the old middle of the park now as well, and they needed that last season. By God, they needed that, and he really grew up last season. I was so proud of him, watching him grow up. And I think if you look at how well he did last season, the position that he plays and the position that we find ourselves in right now at the football club in terms of midfielders, Stephen Kelly's got a very interesting summer, because we know where we are with our midfield. We know the age of some of our players, and no, I'm not trying to say this laddie could come in here and replicate what Stephen Davis done last season, because there's no one in the top flight of Scottish football that can replicate what that laddie brings to the table. But in terms of a full season, I mean, if you look at the end of last season and the way we had to play the last 8-9 games, absolutely bare bones in the middle of the park. You've got a laddie there, 21 years old, who has got a wee bit of everything. Yes, he's developing. Yes, he's still very young, but he's got quality there as well. And you never know if you're good enough until you're given an opportunity to go ahead and prove it or not. So it's very interesting to see if he could be a part of that group. Obviously Zungu and everything's left, and yes, I'm still wanting us to go ahead and sign midfielders, but right now, where we stand right now, he could be in there trying to offer something in terms of rotation. Obviously not starting week in and week out, that's not what I'm saying, but in the cup games or any of these games, you could come in there and start to grow himself a reputation in the old Rangers shirt. Or do we just give him an opportunity again to grow and mature the way he's been doing it in the last 2 years? What do you think, ladies and gentlemen? Let me know down there in the comment section below. As much as I rate Stephen Kelly, I would love to see him in the rotation. I do think Rangers will be making moves this summer. I think if you look at it, 2 years ago it was the defence that got the moolah spent on it with Hollander, etc., and then we had the attack last season. I think the midfield is going to be the area of the park that gets spent heavily this summer, so I do think he will eventually drop down the old depth chart, and I think a loan would be fantastic for him, and with how well he played for Ross County, I'm pretty sure they'll be interested in his services again. But I would like to see maybe a team that's a wee bit higher challenging now, because we've seen that he can do the gritty hard stuff. Now let's see him dominate a game of football with teams that's got aspirations to go ahead and win games almost every single week. So that's where I would lean. I would love to see another loan for Stephen Kelly at the top flight Scottish football. Right, from one very talented 21-year-old that has a future as bright as the old sun to another one that's 21 years old with a future as bright as that, and there's none other than Glenn frickin' Middleton. And let's just be honest with you, if you've ever seen this channel before, if you've ever seen me talk, you knew exactly Glenn Middleton was going to be on this list, because that is a player that has just got talent. I mean, he broke into the Rangers team. Yes, it wasn't the best Rangers team, let's be honest about that, but still at 17 years old, he was scoring goals versus Spartak in the Europa League. Let's no talk about the game, but let's not forget about his performance in the actual game, and he's just went ahead and broke into a St Johnstone side who was having probably their best season in a very, very long time. Yes, he wasn't starting week in and week out, but he slowly but surely worked his way in there and became a massive key factor, and then going ahead and lifting another trophy that season. People can talk about the penalty miss in the final if you want, but don't forget how they got there, ladies and gentlemen. That was through his brilliant cross and assist for the first goal, and the phenomenal 35-yard free kick he scored in the semi-final to send St Johnstone through to the final. This is a laddie again that's got about everything. He can cross the ball, he can get forward, he can rip it through range. He's a set piece specialist now, and you can certainly see that if you ever pay attention to Scotland's under 21s or anything like that, or even the semi-final scream dream that he scored in the cup. He's a talented player, and it's one of these things that a lot of people, because he's been around for so long, he started to write the laddie off, saying, he's no got anything. He's 21-year-old, lads. If we're writing people off at 21, stop the bus. I want off. Now, unlike Stephen Kelly, though, Glenn Middleton hasn't had that loan progression that we all expected. In fact, this is probably the first loan at St Johnstone where it's actually worked out, and we've seen glimpses of the player we know is in there. So it leaves him in this very, very interesting spot where a lot of people are talking about. He's playing fantastic as the captain of Scotland under 21s as well. He's playing at a top level, he's scoring some big goals, he's assisting some minutes, but will he get in the Rangers team, which I see a lot of people talking about? For me, it all comes down to the type of player he actually is, because he's an out-and-out winger, ladies and gentlemen. He's the same, cut from the same cloth as a Neil McCann, gets the ball out wide and whips it into the mixer, and the game's slowly losing those types of players, and especially our game doesn't have that space for that type of guys. We play with inverted wingers, and I think that's the problem with Glenn Middleton. That's why we've not seen him much in the old team, as Rangers have progressed under Steven Gerrard. They've slightly tweaked and changed things, and we've moved away from the traditional winger, and that's kind of came at the cost at Glenn Middleton. But again, he has been developing as a left back or a left wing back for Rangers over the last 18 months, and you see the way Barisic plays, he's basically a winger, so there could be an option there. But for me, this guy deserves to be played where he's best, and that is fuller up the park. And I just think that is the one problem with Glenn Middleton and Rangers, is he just doesn't quite fit the mould of what we require from our inverted wingers, basically attackers. But you've seen, if you paid attention to St Johnstone at all last season, he was slowly adapting. He's playing on the right hand side a couple of times for St Johnstone, cutting inside, ripping it with a left foot, so that could be an option. It's a big pre-season for him. I mean, he absolutely loves being here, he loves being at Rangers, he loves supporting Rangers. You've seen all his stuff on social media. He's trying his best again to break through, and it's going to be an interesting pre-season, but I do think there will be yet another loan for Glenn Middleton. Maybe a last roll of the dice to see if he can develop more and play more week in, week out, and take his game to the next level. What about you guys? What would you do with Mr. Glenn Middleton? Now, moving on to the old third player on my list. Now, isn't he someone who's 21 years old? He's just a couple years older, as he's sitting right now at 23 years old. But that isn't the only difference between the two previous players. Where the two have had success out on loan, the same cannot be said, unfortunately, for big, glorious George, who went down to Derby with all of us thinking, well, that's going to be a success. But it was very, very hit and miss. And again, it wasn't all his fault. He had to recover from the injury, and then Derby was just gone through one of these spells here at an epic proportion, and Wayne Rooney was chopping and changing the squad every 2 days. So it was kind of stacked against him, but still, he didn't have that loan or that performance that made you sit back and go, aye, he's definitely put himself back on the radar. So that leaves him in this very, very weird spot right now of kind of limbo. Now, I didn't want to repeat everything I said in my last video, but I do think, and I still believe to this day, that Jack Simpson was signed in the George Edmondson project role. And with how stacked we are at the centre-back spot, I think the writing is on the wall for Big George. But again, if you've been paying attention to the pre-season stuff, the man is running through brick walls trying to make an impression. And we've seen good things for George Edmondson. Yes, he had that silly incident and everything like that, but in terms of on the park, what he was able to do, he certainly showed enough to get us all excited about the player that he could potentially be for Rangers. But again, I think the writing is on the wall for Mr. George Edmondson. So instead of another loan, which has been my kind of cop-out of the last two, I do think George Edmondson will be moved on in terms of a cheeky wee transfer this frickin' summer. What about you? Now, it's quite fitting that we just spoke about George Edmondson, because you can barely speak about George Edmondson and Rangers without speaking about the next laddie I'm going to talk about, and that is, of course, none other than Jordan Jones. And yes, we know why they're always bunched together, but their careers kind of took the same thing, apart from where Edmondson wasn't able to have a successful loan and put himself back on the old radar. Jordan Jones did, as he had a fantastic loan at Sunderland with performance after performance, and honestly moments of quality that we know that laddie has in him. And that's what frustrates us all, because we've seen it, we know he's got it, we just haven't seen it enough in a Rangers shirt. But where the transfer was looking certain that he would go ahead and join Sunderland, where they were in love with him and everything was looking fantastic, he didn't play in the last playoff game and Sunderland were beat, and that stopped Sunderland for getting promoted and getting that cash injection. So that transfer that looked certain at one point now looks dead, as Sunderland can't afford the old moolah to bring Jordan, as I'm currently recording today's video. Yes, that may change as the summer goes on, but right now Jordan Jones is in this weird spot that he always seems to be at this point of the season. Has people going, he's a talented player, do we keep him? That's like since we've signed the laddie, we've pretty much had the same conversation. Now, I like him in terms of what he's able to bring on the park. He's fast, he's direct, he's had some brilliant moments like the Legia cross for Alfredo Morelos, but he's had some frustrating moments and ghosting moments. And I just think now, as we move to the Champions League level, and that's what you've got to remember, people, we're now taking it up a notch. I do think players like Jordan Jones will be leaving the football club this frickin' summer. Now, last but not least, and it's certainly not for me, who is currently dying right now, and apologies if this sounds absolutely brutal, lads, I just wanted to make a video, I just wanted to have a conversation, but there is one last player that we need to speak about in terms of interesting summers ahead, and it is none other than the proclaimed successor of Alan McGregor. And what a weight that is to have on your shoulders, by the way, especially the way that McGregor continues to play to this day. It is none other than, of course, Robbie frickin' McGregor, who has had such a solid career trajectory where he's just went up and up season upon season. We've heard about this lad, 3-4 years ago, as the next goalkeeper at Rangers, the next guy to take the mantle and be the goalkeeper for many, many years. And for the majority of that time, it's been success after success. I mean, he had a loan down to the lower leagues of football, and we pulled him back early because he was so clear of that level and put him directly into the top flight of Scottish football. Now, again, the season ended via Zoom and all that, but last season he went to Livingston from the first game, and we were going, right, this is going to be the season for Robbie McGregor, as he announces himself as the true successor one day, not again, not next season or anything like that, but one frickin' day. But unfortunately, as I've mentioned many times on this channel, it didn't quite happen, as he was inconsistent in terms of how he started. Not inconsistent in the nets and what he was able to do. No, it was inconsistent on whether he was on the frickin' team or no at Livingston, as Martindale is a true maverick in every sense of the word. And I do think that, and given the fact he wasn't able to go in at Livingston and become the outright number one goalkeeper, has shook a lot of people's confidence in the laddie. But I'm not writing him off, I'm not giving up on him. He's had too many good years, and too many years like that we write him off because he's had a year like that. That's just no for me, ladies and gentlemen. The coaching staff still speaks so highly of him. He's still so young as well for a goalkeeper, and I just think this summer will be massive for him, because where he goes next will be absolutely vital in him getting his career back on track and getting everyone back on board that this is the next successor. So I'll be very interested to see, because there'll no be short and suitors, ladies and gentlemen. There will be a lot of people sniffing around Mr. Robbie McGregor, but it will be doing to him and Rangers to where he goes next that can take him to that next level, because he needs consistency and he needs to be able to play week in and week out, because chopping and changing goalkeepers never works, and it never ever has. And yes, you can play them in the cups and the leagues, we've seen that work in the past, but no, play 2 games in the league, then you're dropped for 4. 2 games in the league, you're dropped for 1. it doesn't make any sense. So hopefully his next move next season sees him playing week in and week out, and he can become the goalkeeper we know he can be. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. That is my list of the 5 Rangers loanees from last season that has a very, very interesting summer ahead of them. If you enjoyed today's video, make sure you get involved down there in the comment section below, because I'd love to know what your thoughts and opinions are. And let's be honest, you're probably going to speak more sense to me because I'm heavily medicated right now and I'm not sure what I just talked about, but hopefully it was good enough to hit that like button as it helps people find the channel. But until next time, ladies and gentlemen, I've been CJ over and 2. Thank you so much for watching, and bye.